Hi, this is your assessment video for assessment task 2 for EDF1303. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the reflective essay and just give you some tips, and hopefully you'll get some information so you understand what you're doing. You can ask obviously questions in your tutorials, but hopefully this will give you the main ideas about the assessment task.
And I might just say, Melissa, that the slides that you're seeing in this video we will also upload to Moodle as well.
Yes. So the task is due on Sunday, the 3rd of June at, of course, 5 minutes to midnight. Now, this is quite late, so my personal suggestion is that students often kind of forget about this assignment and then leave it to the last minute. Now, given that in the tutorials we're going to be kind of scaffolding your understanding of this assessment task, my advice is that you continue to work on it. So, in week 7 we're looking at learning episodes. You might think about writing your learning episode. In the next week, just building up your assessment tasks so that by the time you finish your classes, you actually are prepared to just submit the essay. So you can always submit it early. Now, the first thing that you need to do is you need to choose one topic from weeks 1 to 10. So when we talk about a topic, if you look at your calendar or the schedule in the unit guide, we had weeks that were about, technology, socio-emotional development, intelligence. These are the topics that we're discussing. So you can see that within your within the unit guide in the schedule. Those are the weeks that we're talking about. So you choose one, something that was quite interesting to you that you want to maybe explore a bit more. So first, what you're going to do is you're going to describe a personal learning episode that relates to your topic. Now, the question many of you might be asking is, what is a personal learning episode? So it's an experience when you learned something. So the importance is that it has to be something you were learning something within that experience. It needs to be in some ways formal, so in a school or university, but it can be both inside and outside. So maybe you were at a camp or something. So part of kind of a formal learning experience, but maybe it was outside. But there have been students that have maybe come in from a trade and they were learning that trade. You can also use that as well. So something a bit more formal. But avoid things like I decided that I wanted to learn how to hula hoop, and so I taught myself, or something like that. So examples would be like a lesson or event or a field trip. The second thing you need to do is define and discuss learning in relation to your chosen topic. So the first part of this is actually defining and discussing. So difference between just defining but discussing learning. So in your first week, we talked a lot about what is learning. So you should be kind of talking about what is learning and referring back to the textbook and possibly other articles to talk about what is learning. So avoid just defining it. Every year we find that we get people who use the dictionary to define learning, but that's actually not really what we want you to do, because we can actually go and look up the definition, the formal definition of learning, but we want you to discuss it. And learning is not something that's just can be simplified within just a simple dictionary definition. So I want you to discuss learning. What is it? What are how do different people define it? So, a big part of that is, while someone says that learning is this, others say learning is this. So be able to discuss that instead of just one, Oxford Dictionary says that learning is da 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 da.
And certainly the first chapter in your textbook is a good place to start.
Yes. The next thing is show your in-depth understanding of the chosen topic. So that means define and elaborate key concepts. So for example, if you had chosen intelligence and effective learning as your topic, you might talk about, you need to demonstrate that you actually understand intelligence or intelligences. So, you might look at how people define intelligence, and there may be various kind of viewpoints on that. And what are the debates in regards to intelligence, and how does this connect to learning? So that's where you show that you understand actually what intelligence is about and how it actually connects to learning. So you explain how learning occurs or is influenced by your chosen topic. So how does intelligence influence learning, or vice versa? And then make meaningful links to your textbook and articles. So now it's important because we say textbook and articles. A common question we have is how many references should we have? And I think for us, I'd be thinking about 4, because if you use chapter 1 on learning, and you use the chapter from your topic, and then you include maybe 2 other sources, that's about 4, and that's reasonable. Now, of course, you can do more than that, and that's going to kind of create some more depth, but we're looking at about 4.
And can those other 2 sources, can they just be Wikipedia?
Ideally not, and or the Oxford Dictionary. I would prefer, I think...
How about psychology.net?
No. Anything else? No. But I think that, and this is about credibility of sources. Now that you're at this particular level, we're looking at you demonstrating that you can not only locate different sources, but credible sources. So the best option is the library, and there are obviously a lot online through the search function that you can look at and connect. And of course, we often provide other sources on the topic, so you might actually look at the resource folders in Moodle as well.
Just before you go on, and I think that example of the topic of intelligence and effective learning in this assignment, as opposed to perhaps the poster, like for instance, if you choose a topic of intelligence, we don't want you to just talk about Gardner's multiple intelligences. We want you to sort of bring in some of the other discussion about different aspects of intelligence, in addition to where you might talk about Gardner's multiple intelligences. So we want sort of, as it says there, defining and elaborating key concepts related to the topic as a whole, rather than just honing in on one specific part.
Yeah.
So at this point, you've come up with a personal learning experience. You've recounted that, some episode where you've undertaken some learning. You've chosen a topic to focus on, and you've discussed that in relation to learning. So now in this third section, we're wanting you to basically reflect on your episode and analyse your personal learning experience through the lens of the topic that you've chosen. So, as you can see on the slide here, first off, we want you to explain how or why your episode relates to the chosen topic. So what are the links between what you've experienced and the particular topic you've chosen. Also reflect on how not just you, but also others in the episode. So it might be other teachers, might be other students. Think about how they understood the learning associated with the episode. So thinking about it at the time, from what you recall, but then also as a bit of a reflection about thinking about now your new understanding of learning and the particular topic. Think about the sort of the learning that did or didn't take place in relation to your personal learning experience. And then also talk about or discuss the influence of the particular topic you've chosen on the process of learning as evidenced by your personal learning experience. So your personal learning experience is, I suppose, giving you the sort of practical scenario to analyse and discuss and relate the particular topic to, rather than just sort of talking again about the topic. So again, make meaningful links to your textbook and articles related to your topic, so we bring in discussion about the topic and its impact on your personal learning experience. You'll need to reference and cite any sources you've used to elaborate on the topic. So the example there, so you might be, again, taking this example of you've chosen intelligence as your topic. So in this section, section 3, you'll be talking about and discussing how your understanding of intelligence enhanced or maybe hindered your learning in that personal learning experience, and or how perhaps the teacher used some aspect of intelligence or intelligences in a particular episode. So sometimes it might be overt, the teacher might sort of draw on some aspect of the intelligence topic, and sometimes it might be just that the episode itself shows links to the actual topic. And then finally, in this example, you'll be discussing how your view, or even the sort of the cultural view, if you like, of what is seen as intelligence and how that influenced and shaped your own personal learning experience. So very much it's linking your personal learning experience to the topic and discussing and analysing, and if you like, sort of picking apart what you experienced through this lens of the topic you've chosen. Then finally, the last part is part of your conclusion. We want you to reflect on yourself as a learner in relation to this experience. So think about, you've gone through this process of looked at this experience through a particular lens. So hopefully you've gained some new insights on sort of reflecting back on the experience, and then examining it and analysing it. So what do you now understand, and what do you sort of consider the implications are for you as a pre-service teacher moving forward, seeking to understand more about learning? And that's the final sort of conclusion, where we're sort of wanting that reflection, and again sort of linking it to the topic you've chosen, and drawing on what learning you've gained from the reflection process, but also the analysis. And as I said, thinking about what are the implications for you, when you're going out to teach students. You might be in a similar situation. How might your newfound understanding shape how you might respond?
Yes, and make sure to check and proofread your work by using the marking rubric, which we're going to talk about now.
And the other thing I think we didn't say in the start was this assignment is 2,400 words. So although there's obviously a lot to go through, as you've seen through the different sections of the assignment, you'll find that it's not hard to get to the word limit.
We're just going to quickly go through the rubric. So as you see, and see the weighting. I think it's really important to always look at the weighting, as we've mentioned before, because that's where we're going to that's going to be where the most marks are. So the first section is introduction, with a description of the learning experience. So that's kind of important because that's kind of two different things. There's an introduction with a detailed and rich description of the personal learning experience. So do create, and you've obviously gotten a lot of information in regards to shaping essays. I think that was in week 7. Yep, this week 7. So make sure that you provide an introduction, and part of the introduction is your learning experience, but you do need to introduce your essay. And then the second criteria is the definition of learning. And again, don't get caught up in definition. I would actually we should change it to discussion of learning, and a discussion of your topic and its connection to learning. And that's as we, here you're discussing and looking at the various sides of learning and your topic. So as Tim pointed out, you're not just chopping out one part of it, but you're actually showing that it's quite, on all these topics, there's a variety of different opinions, there's a variety of different kind of views. So it's being able to synthesize some of that information and show that you know a variety of different things about your topic. In criteria 3, there is a critical reflection, and I think this is a really important thing, is what's the difference between a reflection and a critical reflection that analyzes your personal learning experience? And that's a really hard one to kind of discuss, because what does it mean to be critical? And I think for me, part of it is that, we use those words analyze and, critical. But, you're not just, because the learning episode is really kind of describing what's happening, but the reflection and this idea that you're analyzing is that you're looking at your personal learning experience, and you're taking a whole bunch of knowledge and sources that you know about your topic, and you're really trying to kind of unpack that learning experience with what you now know about this topic, and being able to kind of make links. And so part of that critical reflection is being able to just not describe things and talk about things, but actually to pull out meaningful areas of discussion. So, for example, if in your learning experience, you found that you took a test and you did very poorly, when you're actually, the critical reflection is maybe discussing that learning is not all encapsulated by a score. And so you can talk about this idea of intelligence is not equated to just a score on a test, and link it to different articles and your textbooks. So that's that critical nature, is being able to make those connections and those links and support them with the reading that you've already done and articles. So being able to kind of link those together, I think, is a really important part of critical reflection.
And you might also, in that sort of that same scenario, even talk about the sort of the nature of the test itself, and look at sort of the literature around, what sort of intelligence is being measured, if you like, in these tests. And I think the thing to also remember is critical doesn't necessarily mean you have to be negative about things. So you can, both in terms of your personal learning experience, but also the topic. Critical just means examining it and, as Melissa said, unpacking it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to find fault with every part of it. It's more about sort of the unpacking of it and looking at, the aspects, and some of those things might be positive, some of them might be negative. But it's not necessarily that you have to go searching for the problems with it. It's really about sort of looking at the different facets of that personal learning experience through this lens of the topic.
And I think for the D and HD sections, you really need to be linking it back to the readings and to the articles. I think that's a really important part of critical reflection, is being able to support your understanding and analysis. So that's a really, really important part. So if in that section you don't actually link it back to any kind of reading or source, that doesn't, for us, show critical reflection.
And it's also important to note that that section C3 is worth 30%, so it's worth worth the most out of this assignment.
The final there's obviously the last two criteria, which we always have for written assignments, that we'll talk about in a minute, but C4 is the conclusion with personal insights on yourself as a learner and implications for pre-service teachers. Now this is really important because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but in the past, some students have kind of concluded but not reflected on themselves as a learner and implications for pre-service teachers. So you need to actually include both of those things. So not only conclude your essay, but talk about, what do you know now about yourself that you didn't know? And how can you take what you have learned about your topic, and how does this help you understand yourself as a learner? And then how does this help kind of prepare you for teaching, and what are the implications? So now that what you know, for example, in regards to that tests are not everything, how will this impact yourself as a teacher? So these are the things, and this does need to be in the conclusion section. All right, the last two are similar to other assignments. The C5 is your English language, so things like spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and punctuation. And then C6 is literacy, so that's where we're looking at the organization of ideas, things like formatting and referencing. So do make sure, a lot of the times it's just a matter of proofreading. If you're not very confident in your language skills, make sure you ask someone to read it through for you and give you some advice. So part of success is collaborating and working with other people as well, as long as you're not obviously having, they're not writing your essays for you, but that you're actually getting some feedback from other people, that's fine. And then we obviously have services as well, the library and so on, where you can go and talk with people about just making sure you've covered all the APA conventions and so on.
Good advice.
All right. Have a lovely week, and happy essay writing.